We have a 2004 Ford Escape with a P0401, which is an EGR fault code. This footage right here actually took place after the repair. I did this test before the repair, but I forgot to film it, so I'm just going to explain what's going on. Okay, so the test that I'm going to do on the scanner is basically opening up the EGR valve or commanding it to open up, and by doing this the engine should stall out, or just kind of hesitate like it wants to shut off. And the first time I did this test, by opening up the EGR valve, or at least trying to open it, I got no response at all. The engine didn't change its idle or anything like that. So as you can see, I'm opening up the valve here, and about 40-50%, you can see the engine just wants to turn off. It's stumbling. I don't know how well it's picking up on camera, but it definitely wants to shut off. And the first time I did this test, it did not respond. It didn't change the idle like I said. So it just kind of gives you a sense of direction on where to go or what to look for. So as you can see, this car has just over 100,000 miles, and let's go ahead and check the codes on it. And we have a P1000, but do not worry about that. And here's a P0401, which is exhaust gas recirculation flow insufficient detected. Okay, so let me explain what's going on here. This vehicle belongs to a customer of mine. He got this code for the P0401, and he goes on YouTube and comes to the conclusion that he has to replace the EGR valve. So he replaces the valve, clears the code, and sure enough, the code came back. So does it again, and this time he actually replaces the DPFE, and once again clears the code, replaces the part, and the light comes back again. So at this point he just gets frustrated, calls me up, drops the vehicle off to me, and here we are. So with my initial test of using my scanner to try to open up the EGR, and I knew it was not opening up, it just kind of gave me a sense of direction of where to look. So this is a vacuum controlled EGR, and because it's not opening up, that should tell you that you have to go to the EGR vacuum solenoid. And sure, there can be other problems, which is the reason why I'm taking the EGR off the vehicle, because I just want to make sure and see for myself that there's no carbon buildup or anything restricting, or just anything that does not look normal. So I'm taking the EGR valve out to check all of that and just confirm for myself, even though I have a pretty good idea that I have to go look at the vacuum solenoid. And as you can see, I was not joking when I said this is a brand new part. I mean, it's still perfectly clean inside. And here's the tube that comes off of the back of the EGR valve and goes into the intake manifold. And sure, this one has some carbon on it and it's dirty, but there's absolutely nothing that's restrictive on it. So this is something you want to look for. When you take yours apart, check to see if any of these ports right here are clogged with carbon or anything like that, because if it is clogged, that right there could be causing your code. So before you go out and buy any parts, just make sure you check that nothing is clogged with carbon. So one thing you could do is take the EGR valve off of your vehicle, and you could test it by putting a vacuum pump right on this port on top, and you pump it up, and of course you should see the valve open, and when you relieve the pressure, the valve should close. It's an easy way to test your EGR valve. If your valve still works under vacuum, there's no need to replace it. There's no need to waste your money. And the only reason I'm stressing this is because most codes, or at least from what I've seen, EGR codes are caused from carbon buildup. So people just go out and buy new parts, thinking, oh, I got an EGR code, that means I gotta buy an EGR valve. There's no need for that. Most of the times, just check your system, and you might be surprised to find that it's just clogged up with carbon, and a simple cleaning would fix your problem. And here I'm just trying to get the rubber connector off of the vacuum solenoid. It can be difficult to get off just because it's been on there for so long, but I'm just using a prying tool to help me with that. And here I'm going to use my vacuum pump to just check the line coming from the vacuum solenoid to the EGR valve, just to make sure it could hold vacuum, because if it can hold vacuum, that means that there is a problem. There's a slice or a cut in the hose somewhere. And if it can't apply vacuum, then you're going to get an EGR code. So as you can see, with my thumb on the end of the rubber hose here, it can hold vacuum. So I know that there's nothing wrong with the rubber hose coming from the solenoid going to the EGR valve. This connector right here that I'm disconnecting, you could also go ahead and test this to make sure it's supplying its 12 volts. So you could use a DVOM or a test light, and you just turn the key to the on position, and you should see 12 volts or your test light up. And when I got this piece off, it was already broken. So I don't know if maybe someone's already been here before. They broke it and just left it like that. So here's something that I wanted to just check out of curiosity, and I just kind of went at it caveman style. I just grabbed the rubber hose and put it on the pipe going into the EGR valve, and I just simply wanted to inhale and exhale just to make sure I could even get air to move past, to make sure it wasn't clogged. So here's the old part off of the car, and I already have the new one installed. What's funny is that I took the old one off and I just kind of banged it around a little bit, and just out of curiosity, I put the part back on, I reconnected it, and I did my test again with my scanner, and this time the valve was actually working. So obviously we have an intermittent problem, so that could throw people off also, when you have a vacuum solenoid that's working sometimes. So when you go to test it, you find out that it works, but once in a while it doesn't, and it'll give you a code. So I put the new part back on, cleared the codes, and took it for a test drive. Of course, I was keeping an eye on my scanner the whole time. It took about 15 minutes, but as you can see here at the bottom, it says EGR VVT system monitor. Okay, so the car did its test on the EGR system and everything checks out. And like from the beginning of the video, you saw that I was opening and closing the EGR valve with my scanner, so all of that is working. I called the customer and they say still no check engine light. So I'm happy with the repair, and I hope the video helped you. If it did, give it a thumbs up, and like always, consider subscribing. So thanks for watching, guys.